Alright, testing, 1, 2, 3. What's going on, fellow rogues? It's Mass Mayor here, and welcome in for episode 2, or chapter 2, for the reading for my book, Nightmare Country. So, for those who watched the previous stream for this last Wednesday, I kind of you already know the the story here, like what's going on. For those who haven't, I would actually suggest you read that first, obviously, before you read this, because since it's chapter 2 and it's something continuous and nothing self-contained, obviously if you start off here, you're not gonna, know a lot of what's going on. Because chapter 1 and the prologue, of course, were the introduction and everything. So this one right here is, obviously the next part of the story. And in that chapter, I kind of explain a lot of things. I think such as what inspired me to write this book, other things, and so on. So anyways, with that being said, without rambling too much, we're going to go ahead and jump right on into this. Because I was trying to go live a little bit earlier with this, but I kind of just slept in following the Subnautica stream this morning. I did that with no sleep last night, so definitely want to get me some rest, as I've been doing a whole lot of two stream days lately. So yeah, this chapter is called Red Tempest, and it's one that definitely is probably one of my favorites to write, and it's definitely leading up to some other things that are going to be moving forward. But that's basically how all the chapters are going to go. Same ways, we're going to go and start this now. And also for those, of course, who want to check this out, maybe read the other things before next week, I do have several chapters of this available right here on my Wattpad. It goes all the way up to chapter 8. So I am gonna be probably editing these as I go along, to change some stuff around. So anyways, here we go. Chapter 2, Red Tempest. 24 hours had passed, and it was now 6:30 a.m. on Monday. Hell's prophets, for the full amount of time since they made their plan for wiping out the individuals who attacked them, made sure that where one of them went, the rest followed. They felt cowardly about it, though. They had a reputation of ganging up on people they felt were weak no matter how easily just one of them could handle the safe victim. It was just in their evil nature. But now that they felt somewhat threatened, they didn't feel safe with just letting each other walk around alone until Jin came back from the usual killing and stealing that he made a habit of indulging in every weekend. He was the strongest of them all, even compared to Stonewall and his almost unmatched power. To Hell's prophets, it wasn't a question of if their leader could take down the attackers, how quickly he could do so after he returned. Yet, for two other students of the university, today was to carry on as usual to the best of their ability, starting with a growling stomach. Dusk, hurry up. I want to get some breakfast before class starts, Fiona yelled through a closed bathroom door. Hold on a minute, Dusk replied as she buttoned up her uniform top and adjusted her tie. Oh, that's what you said 5 minutes ago, Fiona yelled back, slightly irritated. Well, go on without me. I'll just catch up, Dusk replied again. Yeah, not gonna happen. I don't trust you walking by yourself after the other night and what Dimitri did. I don't like the idea of it, Dusk, Fiona said. With these words, Fiona crossed her arms. She sat on her bed, crossing her legs also. Just thinking of him made her mood more bitter than the coffee she was currently craving. Not that he was worth any sweet thought compared to the sugar and cream she loved with her coffee. You never liked him anyway. Hell, no one does except a small circle of friends, Dusk said. Look, that's besides the point. I just put less trust into him now if that's even possible. Now hurry up and don't tell me to wait a minute, Fiona said. Sounding more irritated, she packed her spell book into her purse with her school books and put the strap on her shoulder. Fine, Dusk said simply. Well, that was easy, Fiona said, smiling. Give me a second, Dusk yelled out quickly. Damn it, Dusk, I'm hungry and I want my coffee, Fiona screamed. Dusk came out of the bathroom seconds later. Black eyeliner and smoky eyeshadow applied and fully dressed in her uniform, which consisted of a long-sleeve black and red striped button up top with the school's crest on the shirt's single front pocket, a red tie, and a black thigh-high length skirt. Skirt with red trim around the bottom. Black dress shoes and matching knee-high socks completed the uniform. While it wasn't a big hit with all the female students, it was a small price to pay for their education. In addition, as long as it was worn in a reasonable way, modifications were allowed. While long-sleeve top and skirt were required for female students, there was, of course, a different outfit for males, which consisted of a short-sleeve white top with red trim at the bottom and sleeves with the symbol of the school's outside of the front pocket on the shirt as well. Black dress pants and matching shoes were suggested, though jeans and sneakers were passable choices also. Fiona, however, took full advantage of the modification permissions and was wearing her uniform top unbuttoned with a white sleeveless t-shirt bearing a panda chibi design underneath. She also preferred ditching the dress shoes and knee-high socks for her Converse and a pair of striped thigh-high stockings from her sizable collection, with today's color being red and black. Safely said, she was wearing the clothes still so the teachers and staff allowed it, namely given they had seen other girls wear worse and less. Her face was decorated with black eyeliner and red eyeshadow, which matched her stockings. About damn time, Fiona said, shaking her head. Oh, you waited. I didn't know you cared, Dusk said, pinching Fiona's cheeks, to which Fiona pushed her hands away playfully with an awkward smile. What took you so long? You were in there for an hour, Fiona asked curiously as she got up from the bed and pulled her skirt to straighten out any wrinkles in her clothing. Well, I was, you know, Dusk said. The paleness of her skin easily showed that she was blushing while unable to get out the words. Fiona let out a gasp. Dusk, you weren't, Fiona said, showing a look of shock. No, of course not, Dusk said hastily, her eyes wide open and her cheeks blushing even more. Then what were you doing? Fiona asked, more curious. If you must know, I wanted to look good for when the new arrivals come, so I applied and removed and reapplied my makeup several times before just going with a simple makeup application. I just don't feel I have that same natural beauty as you and the other girls, which is why I hide it behind makeup. I feel like I'm just not good enough. Fiona said Dusk said as she looked down. Bullshit, Fiona said sternly. What is? Dusk said, looking back up. I may not be the true spokesperson on this by any means. Nevertheless, you don't need to make yourself look beautiful for anyone. Any guy that would rather look at you for, of all things, your makeup, the titty, that ass, or more than anything, how you would be in bed, over your smile, those eyes, or your personality, simply who you truly are in particular, he doesn't deserve you. You have no reason to put yourself up like you're a French whore or whatever when you've got everything you need to win a true hard guy over as far as natural beauty goes. Fiona said reassuringly. You really think so? Dusk asked timidly. Well, I mean, it also helps you're a hell of a kisser, Fiona responded, giving a wink. You're really not going to let that go, are you? Dusk said, shaking her head with a smile. Never. It's going to remain forever tattooed in your mind and on my tongue, you delicious little snack, you. Fiona replied, playfully rubbing Dusk's hand before busting out in laughter. It had been 3 months after her and Fiona met. They were walking down the hallway of the school to lunch when a group of students passed. I've never seen a vampire who doesn't suck blood, but I guess it's nothing new to a girl who doesn't even know how to suck face with someone, they heard one of them say, followed by an uproar of laughter from the group. Word had spread around the school not long after Dusk arrived about her isolated existence prior, and unfortunately, many of the students used such knowledge as fuel for their bullying by making cruel jokes about her. Fiona looked at Dusk, the hurt expression on her face, and then back at the students with a glare. Don't tempt me, fucker, she said under her breath as she looked back, her fingers tracing along the spine of her spell book. She had plenty of incantations at her disposal to give them a scare without actually hurting them, but she took a more personal approach compared to witchcraft. Dusk, just roll with it, okay? She whispered. Roll with what? Dusk barely got out before. Within seconds, Fiona had pulled Dusk's hands to her shoulders and slammed herself against a locker in such a way it looked like Dusk had forced her against it. She then grabbed the back of Dusk's head and pulled her in before kissing her. Dusk's eyes went wide as she protested in confusion through muffled words, namely getting that Fiona told her she was only into guys prior to this. Fiona then suddenly motioned her eyes towards the group. Who had turned around at the sound of her colliding with the middle locker. Dusk caught on, relaxed, and thought on what Fiona said. Roll with it. Thank you for this, Fiona. You amazingly crazy bitch. Dusk thought as she closed her eyes and Fiona followed suit. Atta girl, Fiona thought. Then a few seconds later, okay, either a lot of the books that she said she read when she was trapped in Siberia were erotic novels, or she's a natural. Damn, are we still faking this? She thought again. As she slightly opened one of her eyes, the same group from before stood in the distance. Someone looks of slack-jawed shock, some with scowls of bruised egos, and one catches a very resounding slap across the face. Really, Vince? One of the girls said as she pointed downward at the obvious protrusion in the pants of one of the guys in the group. As she stomped off with him running off after her, still staying at attention, the rest of the group followed. Finally, she and Dusk gently pulled away from each other. Fiona struggled to catch breath while Dusk's unnatural as breathing was for her species, held a quiver on her lips with each tax relief of her air from her throat. Her eyes locked and neither blinked. Then, Fiona fell into a fit of laughter. She rested her head on Dusk's shoulders. What the hell did we just do? Dusk said, her expression showing how lost she was. You had your first kiss, and I had my best, Fiona told her. You're kidding. There's no way I was that good, especially again we were faking being lovers. Dusk said, looking down. Fiona hugged her close. Dusk, if I had a dick, I'd wife you right now. If anything, I'll likely be jealous of whatever guy you end up landing. And believe me, hon, you're going to make someone very happy when it happens, Fiona said. The look of seriousness in her eyes assured Dusk. Come on, assuming you didn't suck my stomach out of me, I'd like to get some grub, Fiona joked before grabbing Dusk's hand and continuing onwards out to the lunchroom. But as they walked, is it strange that your split tongue made it feel like I was kissing two people? Like, if you have a boyfriend, you kiss him. Does that mean he's cheating on you while he's with you because he's technically Frenching two tongues at once? Or Dusk asked, her fingers pressed to her temple inquisitively. Dear God, I fucking broke her, Fiona thought to herself. Due to Fiona's stunt, both her and Dusk, of course, found new rumors being spread that they were a lesbian couple. Both took the rumors as compliments, more so given that the cause of these rumors had at least put a stop to one of the ways that bullies harass Dusk. Fiona, jokes aside, thank you, Dusk said, putting her arms around her friend and hugging her, to which Fiona hugged back. Just don't think like that anymore, okay? You're just as good as anyone else, and screw whoever may say otherwise, Fiona said with a smile as she patted her back and let go. Fiona looked down at her watch and saw that it was 6:54, concluding that they missed the window to get breakfast before class. Well, looks like I'll be making a stop to give an offering a pittance to the vending machine gods along the way to class. Surely they can bequeath this lowly peasant with the twin pack of toaster pastries and a can of liquid sugar. At 9, when we're both free, we'll go get Scarlet and check out the new arrivals, all right? Fiona said, smiling. Sure, Dusk said, smiling also, though she had a slight feeling of uncertainty. It was after Dusk had found Fiona on the floor that previous day that she had called Scarlet and told her everything that went on. Then Scarlet wouldn't be back until Monday. Scarlet told her once again that she was going to pretend to know what happened, while keeping on Hill's problems from a distance, as well as be on the lookout for anything strange that may happen. Simply said, even though Scarlet was honestly furious over what Dimitri had done to Dusk and Fiona, she was going to refrain from taking the action herself that may complicate the situation more than needed. Dusk, however, thought secretly that Scarlet may not have wanted to confront Dimitri due to her loyal feelings towards other vampires, but this thought was annulled by the fact that Dusk also knew that Scarlet's loyalty to her friends, regardless of the species they were, had a tendency to make her forsake any sense of camaraderie towards her fellow Nosferatu. That and Scarlet overall just gave off a vibe that she truly loathed Dimitri. As they walked out the door and locked it, Fiona pulled out her class schedule and went over it while she walked down the hall. Let's see, she said. 7 a.m. anti-werewolf defense. 8 a.m. vampire countermeasures. 9, break. 10 a.m. country myths and legends. Noon, lunch. 1, advanced witchcraft and spells. 2, spectral figures. 3, in the classes. We have the same classes yet again, so we can keep eyes on each other. That said, as she looked over her schedule all the same. As they took the elevator down to the bottom floor, it stopped on the second floor, where a somewhat stout yet slightly muscular man with shaggy brown hair, gray eyes, and some slight stubble on his face, wearing a black suit and a matching tie, was waiting to catch a ride. John Kendrick, Ravenrock University's headmaster. He was not only the full-time headmaster of Ravenrock University and the one who made the final judgments and everything therein, but also the one who first founded the school. Unlike a lot of headmasters who were more in the way they more strict. More strict. I thought I fixed that typo before. Like a lot of headmasters who were more strict in the way that they taught discipline, Mr. Kendrick, after 6 years of experience, knew how to do things not just in favor of the school, but mainly the students. All the staff and teachers obeyed and respected his decisions, whether they truly agreed or not. He looked like he was in his late 30s, but considering that he was obviously much older, everyone knew that he wasn't human if he could live so long, although no one knew exactly what he was. Not like they really cared, because almost every student at Ravenrock that sat down and taught that Mr. Kendrick cared about the man, not the species, with most affectionately calling him a father figure to them. Aside from trying to share the same sense of humor as his student body and going out of his way and doing whatever he could do to bring any of them out of a slump. Anytime a student needed a ride to the city to go shopping, be it for school supplies or just personal items, no matter what time of day or night, Mr. Kendrick would not only take them wherever they needed to go, but would also arrive with his own share of money to help the student if they needed it, regardless of how much money was in question. In his eyes, he took nicknames such as Dad with full humility. But anytime he said a student was his son or daughter, he meant it. He held his profits, so that they showed no respect for him at all, which just showed how much Mr. Kendrick loved his student, especially Dusk after knowing everything she had been through. For all the students saw Mr. Kendrick as the cool dad who never wanted to grow up. Morning headmaster, Dusk and Fiona said in unison as they ran up and hugged him. "Hello, girls, how are you? You both have a good weekend?" Mr. Kendrick said with a happy smile as he stepped on the elevator. It was, somewhat interesting to say the least. How about yours? Dusk asked, trying to hide the fact that strange things had been occurring the whole time that Mr. Kendrick was at home and thus away from this facility. Well, it was the same thing as always. Found a $2 hooker, but had no small bills. Thus, I asked if she had change for $100. I was considered not just a waste of time, but cheap. I wonder why, Mr. Kendrick said before laughing, showing he was joking around. Dusk and Fiona laughed also, though they didn't think that the joke was funny as much as they loved the attempt. How about you, Fiona? Did you enjoy your weekend? Mr. Kendrick asked. Well, somewhat. Dimitri and Stonewall caused us some issues, Fiona said, her tone changed somewhat. When are they not causing issues for people? Dusk asked. Fair point, Fiona replied. Look of seriousness found its way to the headmaster's face. I didn't want to bring it up myself because I felt you didn't want to talk about it, but Scarlet told me about the incident at Alex's party involving Stonewall, and I just talked to Oki about it also. I promise you that I will be having a nice long chat with Stonewall about all this. I'd rather, students settle differences among themselves, but I will not tolerate bullying. You'd figure he and his friends would have learned that by now, Mr. Kendrick said, his face showing that stern look of seriousness even with his calm demeanor. The truth was, he didn't want to admit that they were just purely evil and understood the concept of bullying just fine. They truly knew they just didn't care. He just wanted to keep a belief that they could be taught the error of their ways. Thank you, sir, but please just be careful with Stonewall. We don't want you to get hurt, especially because of us, that said, showing concern. Oh, don't worry about me. Now, as far as Dimitri goes, I haven't heard about that yet. Did he hurt either of you? Mr. Kendrick said while looking Fiona and Dusk over. His eyes then focused on the bruise around Fiona's neck, leading her closing her eyes and twitching her jaw. Fiona, what happened? Did Dimitri do this? Mr. Kendrick asked as he gently pushed her chin, turning her head to the side to get a closer look at her neck. Yes, and it would have been much worse if not for them, she said. Them? Mr. Kendrick asked. The bell to the elevator chimed and the door opened, signaling her arrival at the main floor. As they walked, Fiona explained everything up to the incident with the arrow while leaving out the power she sensed from the separate entities, keeping her voice low so no one except Mr. Kendrick and Dusk could hear her. An arrow, you say, Mr. Kendrick said, scratching his chin. I couldn't understand it either, sir. For the split second I caught sight of it, as it went past my face, I noticed that it was traveling at an angle as if it had been fired from one of the trees nearby. The closest tree from our position was 70 feet away, so the target even hit a person's tooth from such a distance, let alone that angle? How's that possible? Fiona said while trying to remember every detail. It is a strange situation indeed. There's also one to be overlooked in time to manage other matters. I'll talk to Dimitri once I've had my words with Stonewall. Once that's all said and done, I'll look into what you told me, but for now I have to go and let the staff know that the rooms for the new arrivals are prepared. I want you two to go ahead and go to class and try not to worry about this, Mr. Kendrick said, smiling again. Not worry. Easier said than done, Fiona said, looking at the floor. I agree, Dusk seconded. Mr. Kendrick showed another serious look. Fiona, you've been showing great progress in the short amount of time you've been here, and Dusk, I've seen you do the same. So keep hitting those books and try to find a way to make me prouder of you than you already am, if that's even possible, Mr. Kendrick told them in his usual father-like encouragement-induced tone. You just keep showing us how much you care, sir. We'll do our best. We promise. Dusk said with a smile. You always seem to know how to raise their moods and confidence. We love you, Dad. That's more than you may ever know. Fiona said, smiling more than she usually did. I love you girls, too. Now get to class, and if Stonewall or Dimitri start anything else, let me know. Bye, girls. Mr. Kendrick said, showing one more smile before walking off while Dusk and Fiona hurried down the hall to their first class of the day. Stopped long enough for Fiona to get a quick breakfast substitute for the vending machines. Part of an unbalanced breakfast, but at least this means lunch will be yummier, so that's a glass of half full. Fiona said she scooped up a package of frosted strawberry toaster pastries and an energy drink. As they continued down the hall, Fiona quickly tore open the foil wrapper and clenched one of the pastries in her teeth while popping open her soda. They then saw Scarlet casually walk into the classroom for spectral figures, which was across from the classroom for anti-werewolf arts. Scarlet should be getting out of her first class around the same time we do, so we should have a few seconds to talk to her about what Mr. Kendrick said. Dusk said as she walked into the classroom. Fiona followed after finishing off the rest of her food and chugging down the entirety of the energy drink, dropping the wrapper and can into a recycling bin outside the classroom. It was almost full, with almost every 5-seated section of the auditorium-like room holding a quintet of students. As Dusk and Fiona walked over to their seats towards the top, Fiona glanced up and noticed Nero and Dimitri were sitting beside each other with a single section above them. The other students were on the same wing as them out of fear of what they might do. In addition, Dimitri was staring a hole through Dusk and Fiona with his narrowed eyes, not even showing a sign of blinking. Just ignore him, Dusk. He won't do anything in here. Fiona said as she stared back at Dimitri to make sure he heard her. I know, but still, I don't even want to be anywhere near him. Not after the other night, though I didn't want to be before then either. Just can't stand him. Dusk said to her with her eyes turned slightly red as she stared back at Dimitri all the same before sitting down. I swear, Nero, I'm going to kill both of them sooner or later. Dusk, you dare to resist me and my radiant beauty? I'll make sure that no one else will ever have you. Dimitri said as his voice lowered so that only Nero could hear him before snapping the pencil in his hand in two. Truth was, though, Dusk, even if a half-breed, had the same level of keen hearing as he did. She heard him, but chose to simply ignore him as she opened her textbook, though she had to worry to hold in a snort when he mentioned his beauty. Dude, just chill out for now. Maybe we had bigger things to take care of at the moment. There's going to be plenty of time to deal with those two bitches later, Nero said before pulling out another pencil and giving it to Dimitri. Compared to Dimitri, Nero made sure they heard him. However, like Dimitri, he failed in getting any reaction from them. Whatever, is all Dimitri said before taking the pencil and then looking down at his textbook. A few seconds later, the teacher stepped in and closed the door. Good morning, class. I hope you all had a good weekend. Anyways, let's go ahead and get started. There will be a test at the end of the week, so I hope you all will be ready for that by that time. Thus, there will be no time for slacking off. I expect nothing but the best, he said. As in pregnancy test, how many of these sluts have you fucked so they could earn extra credit, dude? Nero yelled down at the teacher, causing everyone except Dusk and Fiona to laugh, although no one besides Nero and Dimitri thought the joke was funny. The students were, of course, afraid of what would happen otherwise if they didn't laugh, with the exception of Dusk and Fiona, who saw no reason at all to laugh at such stupidity. Especially considering they knew that Nero's words were aimed at them as well, namely Fiona giving her all-around exceptional grades for all of her classes. If anything, she was already seeing an honor graduate status for when she graduated. Assuming she managed to live that long given the rate things have been going. Dick. Fiona thought to herself. Good one, Dimitri said. Mr. Zatorsky, I understand how you and your friends do things outside this classroom in the comfort of your little clubhouse or wherever else you believe you have free reign. But be that as it may, at this moment you are inside a classroom, which means you keep your mouth shut unless I ask to speak until it is over. Teacher said strictly. It's freedom of speech and I can say whatever I want, so you can go to hell. Nero said loudly, causing the class to grow silent. Dimitri laughed again. This is starting to piss me off, Fiona whispered to Dusk. They seem to be acting worse since all this started, Dusk whispered back. Wait, these assholes are capable of being even more douchey? Fiona replied. The teacher wrote Nero's name in a notebook to report him for bad behavior, but otherwise ignored his second remark. Afterwards, he walked over to the chalkboard and proceeded to draw a picture of a traditional bipedal werewolf. Hey, it looks like your mother. Vincent Van Gogh? More like Van Gogh gets some drawing lessons because you suck. Nero yelled down before going into an obnoxious laugh that sounded like an asphyxiated donkey, causing the teacher to mess up with a drawing by sketching a large accidental white mustache in the werewolf's face. The classroom suddenly became filled with the sound of almost every student laughing once more, with yet again the exception of Dusk and Fiona. Alright, that's it, Fiona thought to herself as she pulled out her spellbook and thumbed through it. What are you doing? Dusk whispered. Look, someone's got to shut him up, otherwise we won't be able to learn because the teacher won't be able to teach. Fiona whispered back as she stopped on a page and began to recite an incantation. What spell did you cast? Dusk said, looking at the book as Fiona closed it. One which will wipe that smile right off his face. Fiona said before putting the spell book back into her messenger bag and crossing her arms patiently. As Dusk waited for whatever spell Fiona had cast on Nero to take effect, she suddenly heard Dimitri start yelling and looked up at him and replied to see what was happening. She found her hand clasped to her mouth as the image came to sight. Nero's mouth was floating in midair, separated from his face as it flew around Dimitri's head. And it was still laughing. Damn it, he still won't shut up, Fiona said, her voice laced with frustration. Dusk, however, was too busy laughing herself to pay attention to Fiona, and now the entire class had a reason to laugh without faking it, as Nero chased his mouth around the room, bumming through this sealed patch of skin that had replaced it. And suddenly the mouth changed its path and flew under the classroom door, causing Nero to leave the room to follow it with Dimitri close behind. But before walking through the door, Dimitri stopped just long enough to give an icy cold glare to Fiona as he exited. Well, looks like Dimitri knows I cast that spell on Nero. That's not good, Fiona said, looking down at the floor. He's not the only one. Dusk said as she pointed down at the teacher who was looking up at Fiona. Shit, Fiona said under her breath as the teacher walked up to her section. Miss Morellis? While normally I wouldn't allow magic in my classroom, considering you did it for the sake of the students and myself, I'll let it go this time. Just don't make a habit out of it, the teacher said before showing a smile and winking to say good work, before walking back to the chalkboard and drawing a new werewolf on it. You teacher's pet, Dusk said, nudging Fiona. Well, at least my grades aren't going to decline, although my life expectancy sure as hell will after Dimitri's done with me. Dusk, what am I going to do? Fiona said nervously. Dusk was about to reply when the teacher finally started his lecture. Okay, class. Now, I'm sure you all know of a basic werewolf weakness, which is, of course, silver. But can anyone tell me another traditional method of killing a werewolf? Honestly, Fiona, I don't know anything you can do besides let Mr. Kendrick know and hope that you can reason with him. Dusk whispered. Yeah, I know, but... Fiona started to say before the teacher called her name. Miss Morellis? The teacher said, pointing his finger at Fiona. Yes, sir. Fiona replied. Can you name an additional approach to killing someone inherent of the lycanthrope gene? The teacher said, pointing at the werewolf sketch on the chalkboard. The entire class looked at Fiona. She came able to answer almost immediately. Well, to my knowledge, sir, if one may survive an attack from a werewolf and manage to sever its arm, leg, or another limb to the point that it retreats, although the likelihood varies depending on the aggressive nature of it, it can be tracked the next day, even after the full moon's effects on it is temporarily broken to finish it off, she explained. Very good. But how would one track it? He asked. Fiona continued. Although some werewolves can heal very quickly from normally fatal wounds, they lack the ability to regenerate lost limbs, such as the aforementioned arm or leg, and can only regain the lost limb in the same fashion as some demons and vampires, which would be to hold the severed limb to the stump, which would bond it to where it was previously severed. In other words, say if one was to find a human being who had the same exact injury as the werewolf in the form of a freshly inflated bloody stump where his or her arm used to be, well, then it's obvious that you found the monster in its vulnerable form, which is a human being that can be easily executed through normal means that don't involve all silver. Though as a side note, killing the infected isn't always fully needed because they possibly weren't themselves, she added. You bring up an interesting point on a non-lethal approach to dealing with a werewolf. Please elaborate further, he said. While they may have killed, if they were turned by another werewolf via bite or even indirect means, such as drinking water contaminated with a lycanthrope gene, then assuming the person regrets their actions and wants to live and repent for it, like a vampire, one could hunt the werewolf responsible for the bite. If it is killed, the very person in question should be cured, she explained. Excellent answer, Miss Morales. If you were shooting for extra credit, you earned it, the teacher said, smiling. Thank you, sir, Fiona said before looking down at the floor, still unsure what to do about Dimitri. A little while later, after class was finished, I didn't know there was some species of werewolf get stronger under a harvest moon. Fiona said as she walked out of the classroom trying to pull Fiona out of her slump. Well, it's all factor if they were originally born under one, as the teacher said. Basically, they could not just get stronger, but also faster and times more ferocious, but it's an extremely rare occurrence with only a handful of documented transformations. Fiona said, looking at the floor still as she walked down the hall to vampire countermeasures. Please cheer up, Fiona. It's going to be okay, Dusk said before putting her hand on Fiona's shoulder. Though she herself was fully aware how dire things had become, even compared to before what had happened in class. Dusk, how do you expect me to cheer up? I'm at the top of Dimitri's hit list now, although I already was to begin with. Did you even see how he looked at me? Please let it happen again. Just let them be looking out for me right now, Fiona said, shaking nervously. Who? Dusk asked. Who else? The ones that saved me before. I still don't know who they are or what they want, but I just don't care anymore, Dusk. I need them, or anyone who can stand up that creep, Fiona said before falling on her knees crying. Dusk got on the floor to comfort her. Shh. Don't worry. I won't let anything happen to you. Neither will Scarlet or the headmaster, Dusk said, noticing a few drops of blood falling on the floor. Suddenly she had started crying herself. Yeah, you just keep telling her that, a voice said behind her. Dusk wiped the tears from her eyes and quickly got up to where she saw that Dimitri was walking towards them with Bane, Nero, and Stonewall behind him. Fear overtook her, but she also wouldn't let it be noticed. Look, Dimitri, just leave her alone, all right? Dusk said while standing in front of Fiona as a shield between them. Leave her alone, after what that grotty ninja did to Nero. To me. She embarrassed both of us, and for that I'll see to it I finish right now what I intended to do the other night, he said evilly. Well, if he actually showed respect, maybe he nor you would have got disrespected. He brought it on himself, Dusk said. What the hell did you say, bitch? Nero said as he stepped forward next to Dimitri. You heard me. Given it wasn't your ears, she separated from your empty head, but your mouth. Not that you have the brain capacity to rationalize a coherent thought. I'd say try turning into a dolphin, but you can't have a smarter brain if you lack one to begin with, Dusk replied. Nero was about to reply, but lost the words on his tongue to the sound of students laughing around him. Hey, shut the fuck up, or you'll be sharing what we're going to be doing to them, Nero threatened. Fiona continued to cry as she sat behind Dusk while the four members of Hell's Prophets came closer, but Dusk didn't budge, all the while Dimitri continued. These past few days, we've been dodging trips to the infirmary just to save our reputation after being jumped on 3 separate occasions. Stonewall was an inch away from spilling his guts on the floor, through his mouth while I lost a tooth. Not to mention some crazy wolf and fuck tossed Bane into a tree. But all that's beside the point, you see, because due to your friend and her damn spell, Nero had to go to the very place we were trying to avoid just so you could have a counter spell cast on him to fix his mouth. Because of your friend, we were laughed at, and that's why we're going to take our time in killing her. Dimitri spoke. Oh, boo-hoo, you have a toothache. Who cares? Dusk said. Everyone watching showed surprise. Dusk, to those who knew her, was always hesitant and much more timid. You'd best care, because if you don't get out of the way, you'll be the first to go. For as I said, Dusk, if I can't have you, then nobody shall, Dimitri said, his eyes casting a sinister glare. Given the fact that you're nobody, I wouldn't put too much hope in that. Just any girl you get with shouldn't put hope in you lasting more than a millisecond. It must be a very fucking sad existence when the only person who gets off the thought of Dimitri Porter is Dimitri Porter. Dusk insulted. Welcome in, Springlock. Dimitri was about to reply, but was too taken back by Dusk's direct attack on his sex life. It was at this moment that Dusk walked towards Hell's Prophets as a crowd of students began to gather closer around, including Scarlet, who had just ran over to Fiona's side. Fiona, are you okay? What the hell's going on here? Scarlet asked her. Fiona didn't respond as she continued crying. Scarlet, look at Dusk. Is she actually going to try and fight them? A random female student said among the chatter in the crowd. Oh my God, what's that idiot thinking? Scarlet said, covering her mouth in concern. It's so obvious. Again, I was about to talk in the wrong character. It's so obvious that none of you can fight fair, even when it comes to a girl. You're all supposed to be so strong, yet only through numbers. By yourselves, you're just weak. Dusk said fiercely. Her eyes were turning completely red and her fangs began to show. Oh, look out, guys. She's on her period, Nero joked, which led to Bane and Stonewall laughing. But Dimitri didn't as he walked towards Dusk until they were face to face. Everyone at this school knows you're no match for us, Dusk, so stop pretending to be. After all, you're nothing but a lowly half-breed, a mutt, a stray bitch hound pulled off the streets and brought it here only because the headmaster felt bad for you. I mean, look at what you're up against. Yet you think you're something better? The four of us are elite and entirely out of your league. But even going up against pure-blooded perfection such as me alone is death itself. Dimitri said as he stared at Dusk coldly. At Dimitri's words, Dusk suddenly found herself crying again, although she couldn't see why. She wasn't sad, just purely infuriated. But for some reason unknown to Dusk, these tears felt different. Like sharp blades cascading from her eyes, which may explain why she was crying a lot more tears than usual. It felt like her face below her eyes was burning, like her skin was cut open. See what I mean? You are the one who's truly pathetic, Dusk. All those strong words, and yet you fall apart so easily? I see not why I've taken such interest in you. Dimitri said in disgust as he shook his head. Something's wrong, Fiona spoke finally, having now become more concerned about Dusk and herself. She looked up. Fiona felt it. And I definitely need to change that part, because it makes it seem like, Fiona's not concerned about Dusk. I can definitely change the wording there. Fiona felt it, and it was coming from Dusk, that aura. Whatever it was strong. And from what she could make out, it was almost as intense as the other 5 auras she had been sensing off and on the past few days. Though considering Fiona's sense or intensity based on distance, if they were so powerful from a distance, with Dusk giving off a similar level of strength from such a close distance, then how strong were those 5 truly? Well, she sensed that they were as close as Dusk was right now. Especially that warlock. Fiona stopped her thoughts from going further at such a concept. As Dusk continued to cry, she suddenly fell to the floor, screaming in pain as she held her eyes. This is ridiculous. You defy me yet again, and then suddenly expect me to go easy on you by crying. You are weak, like all my other victims, and for that, you just don't deserve to hold on to your life any longer. My bell would have welcomed you, but there will always be another, and they, like you, will also be expendable. Dimitri said as he pulled his weapon from the sheath on his back. It was a broadsword, but it had been fitted with a chainsaw blade around the sword itself with modifications to the handle, which held a small motor with a pull cord and fuel reservoir. It was Dimitri's pride and joy, and the thing that he used for killing aside from his fangs. I'm going to enjoy this, although I must confess that it may get a little messy, Dimitri said, before pulling the cord and twisting the handle, bringing the chainsaw blade to life, and lowering it down to Dusk, who was screaming louder as she still held her eyes with a shade of crimson coursing through her fingers. Dusk! Scarlet screamed as she got up and started to run. Dimitri lowered the blade until it was at Dusk's throat, but before he could lower it go any further, one of the students ran in and tried to stop him. Get away from her! The student said as he swung at Dimitri. This was the last thing that he would ever do. Scarlet stopped running and clasped her hand to her mouth in horror. Fiona looked away, as did most of the other students, though those who watched screamed. But the last scream came from him. Now Dimitri's latest victim. Dimitri had drove his blade through the student's torso and lifted him off the ground as blood sprayed everywhere while the chainsaw cut its way up the boy's body. A few seconds later, after the blade had come to an inch from the student's neck, Dimitri cut the motor off. Most of the victim's organs had been ripped apart, and he was bleeding heavily from his mouth and nose, but somehow he was still alive as his body twitched and he let out desperate breaths, something Dimitri relished in. Poor little excuse for a hero. I've said it already, but I guess I'll have to repeat myself that no one defies me, and now you see why. Please indulge me in your suffering for a few more seconds, because I want you to see how much you just wasted your life as she dies. Dimitri snarled, before throwing the student off the sword and starting the motor back up as he turned back to Dusk. He, however, found himself face to face with Dusk, who was now standing up, no longer crying, but instead staring at him with a burning hate. Though this expression of malice was mostly masked by multiple lacerations under both her eyes. He then watched she tilt her head sideways, gripping it with both hands as if her mind had just snapped completely in two. It also brought everyone's focus to wounds on her hands similar to those on her face. She snarled, growled, hissed, and she twitched multiple times with each second. You bastard! How could you kill someone so shamelessly? This feels nothing at all. How could you? Dusk said, the painful breaths and the sound of her words breaking mid-sentence with each said breath showing strong. Her fangs were bared and dripping saliva like venom with every word as she stared at Dimitri. And all the blood that Dusk had cried on the floor suddenly rose up and circled around in the form of small red discs. Discs almost resembled flower petals. Scarlet and Fiona stared wide-eyed at what was going on. Though Scarlet knew what it was now, she was just confused on how. Bane, Nero, and Stonewall showed the same look of surprise as the floating drops of blood started to come towards them. Dimitri, as much as I love watching you do your work, maybe we should get out of here. Nero says he stepped backwards, followed by Bane and Stonewall. Dimitri took his eyes off Dusk and stared at his teammates. What's the matter with you three? It's only drops of blood. Dimitri said while showing a cocky grin. Look, man, I don't give a damn if it's a bunch of butterflies fluttering under a rainbow while chubby midgets chase around a walking cookie. The way things have been going lately, I don't want to take a chance with anything. Bane said, showing a fear for once. Same here, Stonewall said afterwards. Look, I'm telling you there's nothing to worry about. Just watch. Dimitri said as he turned back around to face Dusk and put one of his fingers out to touch one of the blood drops. Dimitri let out a surprised yell when the small blood droplet suddenly moved as if it was alive and a sudden sharp pain permeated from his hand. A wet plop on the floor followed, leading to Dimitri looking down, seeing his right index finger laying at his feet. What the fuck? Dimitri yelled as he held his hand while it bled rapidly on the floor. However, instead of seeing about their friends, Stonewall, Bane, and Nero backed away much quicker. Nothing to worry about. Just as he said, guys. Nice job, Dimitri, because you called that one perfectly. Nero shot off. Shut it, Runt. Can't you guys see that I'm hurt? Help me. Dimitri said, frozen in place from the shock of what just happened. Nero replied by opening his mouth wide and pointing his finger, telling Dimitri to look behind him. When Dimitri did, he saw that Dusk's irises were glowing red and that the hundreds of floating red droplets around her had formed into a spinning vortex and were advancing quicker, like a small tornado. I suggest you follow your friends, Dimitri. After all, since I cut off your finger with one droplet, what do you think a few hundred could do? Dusk said in a voice that sounded nothing like her own as she continued to tilt her head while holding it with her palms, twitching her neck the whole time. Dimitri picked his finger up and took a few quick steps back. Then when the tornado of blood almost upon him, he took off in a swift run, followed by his friends. As they ran, the cyclone pursued them to the end of the hallway before vanishing in a cloud of red vapor when it hit its far wall, barely missing them as they turned the corner. The only evidence left of the vortex having ever existed was that several large, narrow, deep slits had formed on the wall that the blood petals had cut the segment before it evaporated. Dusk finally seemed to regain her composure as her head straightened and she hung her neck down, her arms at her sides. Oh my god. Fiona said she ran over to Dusk, who was still looking down while Scarlet also slowly walked over, deep in thought about what just happened to her friend. That attack could have been... That's not possible. At least not for her. Yet I know what I saw, possible or not. Scarlet thought to herself. When Fiona had got to Dusk, her eyes and teeth had gone back to normal, and the cuts under her eyes and on her hands had healed, but her skin was much paler than usual, and most of the veins in her face, neck, and arms were completely visible as if her skin was semi-transparent. Then, without warning, Dusk started to fall. Dusk! Fiona screamed as she caught her. Scarlet broke into a run as Fiona lowered Dusk's unconscious frame down to the floor. Shit, she's cold normally, but not this cold, even with the fact of her being dead. Fiona said as she took off her uniform shirt and put it over Dusk, leaving herself in just her shirt. I'll go get Mr. Kendrick, Scarlet said as she ran down the hallway to the lobby. Bring a nurse, too, Fiona yelled at Scarlet. On the other side of the school in Hell's Prophet, HQ. What the hell just happened? Dimitri yelled as Bane held a lighter to where his finger had been, severed to stop the bleeding, since Dimitri was so frantic he couldn't concentrate on healing. It should be obvious we got punked out by that girl, Nero said, being the usual smartass. I know that much, but what I want to know is how. She's a half-breed. A fucking half-breed. Dimitri yelled even louder. Damn it, Dimitri. I know I'm not one to talk about tempers, but you already won't be able to reattach your finger until you reopen the wound. Now hold still. Bane growled as Dimitri squirmed while he bandaged his hand up. Once Dimitri was patched up, he immediately grabbed his sword and started out of the gym before Stonewall blocked the door with one of his giant hands. Stonewall? You get out of my way, or else. Dimitri said as then the blade up at Stonewall. Like hell I am. You're being as hot-headed as he is, and you remember what happened the other night, Stonewall said before pointing at Bane. What's that supposed to mean, you Earthspawn jackass? Bane said angrily. Exactly what I said. You got your ass handed to you the other night, as much as I know you hate hearing it, and it was all because of your temper. Mr. High and Mighty right here goes out there, then what's to stop it from happening again? Not to mention he gave the same lecture and he's setting a poor example. Stonewall roared as he crossed his arms. Dimitri didn't say anything as he turned away from Stonewall. He knew that Stonewall was right, though he didn't want to admit it. Back across the school. What happened? Mr. Kendrick said to Fiona upon seeing Dusk unresponsible on the floor as he walked with Scarlet back down the hallway. They were followed by a nurse wheeling a gurney. We don't know. She got an altercation with Dimitri and Fiona said unable to find an explanation. It was a Crimson Razor win, Fiona. Dusk's first dark drive. Scarlet explained. Crimson Razor win? Dark drive? Scarlet, what the hell are you talking about? Fiona said, confused. I'll explain soon enough, but first we need to get her to a nurse's station. Dusk is only going through a recovery stage because that attack drained most of the blood in her body. That's why her veins are showing, also why her skin is so pale, but nonetheless she still needs to be in bed until she's well which shouldn't take too long, Scarlet said calmly. Although Fiona still didn't understand what was going on or how Scarlet could speak so easily given the current situation, she agreed with her. The nurse and Mr. Kendrick picked Dusk up and put her on the gurney before the nurse pulled out a blood pressure cuff and stethoscope. What are you doing? Scarlet asked. What does it look like? I'm going to check her vitals, the nurse replied. Yeah, good luck with that, Fiona said. Why do you say that? Scarlet gave her answer by putting the stethoscope to her own chest, giving off no heartbeat. Because like me, she has no vitals to check. Scarlet explained. Be nice, girl. She's new here, Mr. Kendrick said. When they reached the nurse's station, Dusk was immediately put on a temporary bed. Mr. Kendrick who had let the girls schedule classes stay with her, stepped out to speak with the nurse. As Fiona sat down in the chair next to Dusk's bed, she glared at Scarlet, who was leaning against the wall close to the door with her eyes closed and her arms crossed. She wanted answers and she was tired of waiting for him. All right, Scarlet, you mind filling me in on what happened? Fiona said bluntly. Scarlet looked down at Fiona and then out the door. She wasn't supposed to be able to do that. Only full-blooded vampires should be able to perform the Crimson Razor when even still only a rare few can in the first place, Scarlet said, sounding worried for once. Scarlet, just explain it, please, Fiona asked. Scarlet took a deep breath. The Crimson Razorwind is an attack that occurs when a vampire harnesses their blood and uses it as a weapon. The name Razorwind comes from the fact that the blood drops harden and become sharp as blades even as they pour from the body, or in Dusk's case, the eyes. It's all triggered by anger and stress, which should be obvious, but then again, a lot of dark drives are on the first time using them. Usually trigger them subconsciously when the body simply decides it's time to happen. Still, what puzzles me is how Dusk, who is a hybrid, managed to pull it off. It's the first time I've heard of anything other than a full-blood vampire doing it, Scarlet said in the best way she could think of without confusing Fiona more. Okay, that's one question answered. Now what the hell is up, Fiona started to say. Dark drive? Scarlet finished. You finished my sentence, and you know I hate when you do that, but yes, Fiona said, brushing her hair from her eyes. Sorry. But yeah, it's a very powerful attack linked to a person's natural abilities and sometimes even their personality. In truth, even if Dusk wouldn't have performed hers today, you would have found out eventually. Everyone in this school has at least one lying dormant inside waiting to come out, Scarlet said with a slight smile on her face. In other words, I have one, Fiona said, looking at her hands. You, me, Oki, Dusk, everyone. I've already found mine, and so is Oki. Also, that spell Dimitri uses is one. His only one. As you can deduce, it's an example of a dark drive being linked to personality traits over sheer abilities, Scarlet explained. Fiona looked at the floor with a blank expression on her face. She felt confused still and also scared, but at the same time a little bit confident. She had no idea what her dark drive was, and only after Scarlet explained it to her did she feel it inside her body. But it was there. Her mother and father once told her that that one day she'd find her true strength, and she felt this was what they meant. A dark drive. And it was a scary thought nonetheless. Fiona thought back on what happened to Dusk. Her power had a terrible backlash to it, so she had to know if it would be the same. Scarlet, when you found your dark drive, was it... Fiona didn't finish. She looked down at Dusk. This time she allowed Scarlet to finish the sentence. Painful? Yes. No matter who you are, when you use your dark drive for the first time, it puts an incredible amount of strain on you, and from that strain, you're going to feel a varying degree of discomfort depending on the dark drive's properties. It's a matter of your body's genetic code adjusting to accommodate the new ability. Some people may throw up for hours, while some may feel like every bone in their body is about to explode. Now, some even lose their ability to move and go into temporary paralysis, but no effect ever leads to death, although considering I'm already dead, I guess I wouldn't know. Puking made up for that, though, Scarlet answered. How do you know so much about it, though? I mean, I know you experienced it yourself, but not from everyone else's point of view, Fiona asked. After I found mine, I studied up on what a dark drive truly was, not to mention Mr. Kendrick told me more about them. Different people have different dark drives, on the same note, different side effects for the first time performing it. It's that simple, Scarlet said. Well, what is your dark drive? Fiona asked curiously. I'll tell you later. I might even show you. For now, though, just take time to process all that I just told you. I know it's swimming around quite a bit in your skull at the moment, Scarlet said before walking down towards the door. You're just gonna leave? What about Dusk? Fiona asked Scarlet, causing her to stop. She'll be fine. Trust me, Scarlet said before walking out the door. Fiona found herself thinking again. Am I actually ready for something like what happened to Dusk out there? She tends to cry a lot after everything she's been through, which may explain why her dark drive revolved around her tears, but my powers are my spells. What if I end up unable to control mine? Fiona said to herself in concern of the thought. She expected Mr. Kendrick to walk in any second, but he never did, nor did anyone else. Then she looked at the clock on the wall and noticed there was only a few minutes until 9. Fiona knew that whenever new students arrived, Mr. Kendrick went out to meet them personally, and her guess was that Scarlet had left for the same reasons. Sleep well, Dusk, and remember that we're here for you, Fiona said to her sleeping friend in hopes that she may hear before leaving the room and walking down the hallway. As she did, she noticed another stretcher with a small handful of students gathered around it crying. The sheets were covered in blood, and she could make out a body underneath. She didn't remember the poor boy who tried to save Dusk earlier but lost his life in the process. A lone tear went down Fiona's face. She continued to walk. In her eyes, if she truly did have a dark drive inside her, like Scarlet said, then what would she have to do to bring it out? The thought of hurting innocent people by accident was extremely painful to her. But seeing people die, like Dimitri's most recent victim, was just as bad, if not worse, because it was a reality and not a thought. Fiona hated violence and fighting, but the truth was she wanted to kill Dimitri and the rest of the group if she could stop the pain and bloodshed. She felt it might be a false courage and jumped to conclusions. But in Fiona's mind, she thought that if she found her dark drive and managed to control it, then she could possibly stand up to Hell's prophets herself. Something has to give. Something just has to change, and soon. Fiona thought to herself as she walked into the main lobby, which was unsurprisingly crowded with dozens of students who were enjoying their 1-hour break, though she saw no sign of Scarlet. Word had gotten out that the new students would all be males. Thus, a large number of the lobby occupants were girls like Fiona, wanted to check out the new arrivals the moment they came in. Some were just curious, while others felt that being the first to talk to one would give them a chance of becoming friends quicker than the others, which gave likelihood of something more down the line. Fiona was more the former of those two, only her curiosity had its reasons. In her head, she was bouncing around thoughts she herself felt was outlandish, but even so, it still lingered. 5 new students. She had sensed 5 auras only a couple days prior to their arrival. 9:02. Any minute now, Fiona said under her breath as she checked her watch. As she waited, she heard a conversation being carried on by 2 girls sitting on one of the couches in the lobby. What do you think the first guy will look like? The first girl said. Shouldn't really matter to you since you don't have a chance with him. The second girl shot back. What's that supposed to mean? The first girl acted defensively. It means I've called dibs, the second girl explained. It's bullshit. You're claiming the guy as if he's a piece of property. If that's not bad enough, you have no idea if he's even good looking or ugly. The first girl snapped before she got up off the couch, leading to the other girl doing the same. Well, why don't you do something about it, bitch? The second girl said with a smirk on her face. And at that, cat fight! One of the male students yelled down the hallway, leading to a large mob of students rushing down to see it. Fiona, however, sat down on the floor across the room and continued to wait as she thumbed through one of her spell books and jotted down notes in a notebook. She had no interest in what was going on. Idiots, she thought to herself. The girls continued to fight without interruption. Screams filled the air. Clothes were ripped. Hair was pulled. Cuts and bruises were inflicted. But nonetheless, they continued even after all the students in the hallway turned their attention away from the fight towards a small red car that pulled up outside. Its windows were tinted, so the people inside could barely be seen aside from their silhouettes. A few seconds passed before one of the back doors opened and a boy possibly in his late teens stepped out. He was wearing a pair of blue jeans and a brown leather jacket over a black t-shirt along with a pair of white, brown, and red Vans skateboarding shoes. He had greenish blue eyes and semi-straight thick hair, and semi-straight thick hair was a dark shade of blonde that went a little past his ears on the sides, but was mid-neck length in the back while sweeping to his eyebrows in the front. The other door in the back, along with both front doors, opened to reveal 3 more people. 2 adults who were obviously the boy's parents, and a girl possibly in her mid-20s that was likely his sister. Father popped the trunk to the car, which opened to reveal a moderate number of duffel bags and suitcases. There was no doubt in Fiona's mind this young boy was indeed the first new arrival. While the boy and his mother pulled countless bags out of the trunk, the father and sister walked towards the building. Upon entering the front doors, the first thing to notice was the 2 girls still fighting. The sister raised her eyebrow at the sight, while the father showed a look of surprise. Well, there goes that. There's no way they're going to let him stay here with that after seeing that, Fiona thought with a small smile, being slightly relieved. Although she hadn't sensed anything from the boy that hinted at him being one of the 5 from before, she still felt that was possible. However, Fiona showed a look of shock when the father went up to the front desk while the sister grabbed a handcart before going back outside to load the bags onto it. They didn't even care that the fight was going on aside from the initial reactions. May I help you? The lady at the front desk asked the boy's father. Yes, I'm here to drop off my son. His last name is Crafton, he said. The woman pulled a large book out from the desk and thumbed through it, trying to find a listing for Crafton. Crafton. Ah, here it is. Crow Crafton, age 18. Scheduled to start school here today, correct? The woman asked him. Yes, ma'am, that's him, Mr. Crafton said. The woman picked up the phone and dialed a number. Hello, Mr. Kendrick. It's Rose down in the main office. Sir? Oh, yes, I'm doing fine, thank you. I was just calling to let you know that one of the new students has arrived. Which one? It's Crafton, sir. His father just brought him in. Okay, I'll tell him. You're very welcome, sir. Goodbye, she said before hanging up. Headmaster will be down shortly, but you may have a seat if you like, Rose said as she looked at Mr. Crafton. He stared out the main lobby while the 2 girls were still fighting, then back at her. Then back at her. Sit down. Do you even see what's going on out here? Mr. Crafton said. Rose quickly jumped up and ran out to the lobby to try and stop the fight regardless of Mr. Kendrick's rules, but her attempts were in vain. Girls, stop it right now. We have a new student we are trying to welcome. You're acting like this? Rose said in a panic. Neither girl showed signs of stopping still. This is completely unacceptable, Rose said. Then, without warning, the fight finally stopped as both girls and all the other students turned their attention to the lobby door. Rose and Mr. Crafton saw why. Crow just walked in with his mother and sister behind him. On his face was a smile that showed every tooth in his mouth. He had a large duffel bag draped over his shoulder. If you two are fighting over me, then I'm gonna have nothing to do with either of you, Crow said, speaking for the first time as he looked at both girls, his smile now replaced by a serious look. Why not? One of the girls, the one who started the fight, said, looking somewhat disappointed. Crow looked around the dorm lobby and then back at the girls. Find out next time on Dragon Ball Z, Crow said, showing yet another big smile before walking up to the front desk to sign his name on the admission slip. Well, at least he has a sense of humor, Fiona said, a slight smile on her face as well. A few minutes after getting a couple more of his bags out of the car, Crow's family began to say their goodbyes. Are you gonna be alright here by yourself, little bro? Sister asked. Pretty sure. Doesn't seem to be too bad of a crowd, Crow said in assurance, yet obviously being sarcastic at the thought of the fight between the girls. Okay then, son. We're gonna leave you now, but just remember that he is here too, so be on your guard. You have those powers for a reason, but just make sure you don't start any fights with him first. It's inevitable for you two to battle each other, but on the same note, your studies are also important, Mr. Crafton said sternly. I still don't understand. I've been alive for 18 years. You still haven't told me just why we are destined to fight this other family. Just when are you intend on filling me in, Dad? Crow said in a demanding voice. His father hugged him. You'll know when it's time. We love you, son, his father said. I love you too, but I'm tired of this bullshit, Crow said, hugging his father back, followed by his mom and then his sister. With that, they walked out the front lobby into the car. Seconds later, they were gone. Upon taking a look at his face, Fiona noticed that Crow looked troubled and in response decided to get up and go do the respectful thing, which was to introduce herself to him. Hello, I'm Fiona Morellis, Fiona said, trying to hide her nervousness as she extended her hand. She still didn't sense anything and knew it was likely she was just paranoid, but that didn't make her any less cautious. Hey, I'm Crow. I'm Crow. Crow Crafton. It's nice to meet you, Fiona. Crow responded before shaking her hand, still showing the same troubled look on his face. It's a stupid question, I know, but are you okay? Fiona asked. Not really. I read and I explained it all, but it's the fact that my dad keeps hiding things from me. I'm apparently got this destiny to where I have to fight a member of an opposing bloodline like everyone else in my family has done before, he said. Fight? But why? Fiona asked while trying to act oblivious to the fact that she had heard the whole conversation before, even though hang on. Even though, that was another typo there. Even though it was vague with no explanation of the reason. I don't know why, but what I do know is I think it's pointless. People on my side have died, and people on the other side have all the same. And they keep doing it. All my dad tells me every time I ask him is, you'll know when it's time. But I just want not just to know the truth, but also want out of it, Crow said, staring at the floor, then at Fiona, who couldn't help but feel for him. That is pointless, Fiona said before putting an arm around Crow's shoulder. Fiona, if it's not much to ask since I'm new here, would you mind being my friend? Crow asked with a small smile on his face. Be your friend? Of course I will, Fiona said in a happy tone, growing even happier when Crow showed every tooth in his mouth than the same smile he did when he showed up. A few minutes later, Mr. Kendrick appeared in the lobby, looking through a folder that had Crow's information in it before smiling at him. Mr. Crafton. Please make your acquaintance. I'm John Kendrick, headmaster of Ravenrock University. Let me have the honor of saying welcome to my school, Mr. Kendrick said in his usual happy tone, offering his hand to Crow. Thank you, sir. I'm happy to be here, Crow said, extending his hand to shake Mr. Kendrick's. We have a few things to take care of first, and once we're finished, I'll have the staff show you to your dorm room. However, we have another couple of moments to spare if you two weren't finished speaking, Mr. Kendrick explained. Things to take care of? You may be here at the school, but you have to become an actual member of the student body still. In other words, you have to sign paperwork and also take a few tests that are in sync to your powers to let us know what your physical and mental capabilities for such. Not to mention medical checks such as blood work and your weight to determine your overall biological health, Mr. Kendrick explained. Health diagnosis I can understand, but what's the reason for monitoring the extent of my powers? Crow asked. All students here are given a specific rank based on the test with periodic tests to determine if the rank should be raised, lowered, or kept as is. They are mainly as safety precautions to know what measures should be taken if a student with a history of being hostile chose to go on a rampage or for whatever reason if a normally peaceful student went rogue. The lowest and therefore least threatening rank is Class E, which is the highest, while the highest and therefore most dangerous rank is a Class S+. However, only one student currently attends a school with such a high rank, Mr. Kendrick explained. A muscle on Fiona's jaw twitched. Fiona knew the ranks of her three closest friends, but also those of Hell's Prophets. Three of them were A rank, Dimitri, Bane, and Nero, while Stonewall was an S rank due to his strength and almost invincible body. When Mr. Kendrick had mentioned the only S+ ranked student, he was referring to Jen. Crow looked at Fiona. If you're wondering what my rank is, I'm a Class B+. Mr. Kendrick said if I continue to train my abilities, I'll be as strong as Class A or as a Class A or possibly even an S rank eventually. With being a witch, my rank is tied to my ability to use spells as well as how many I know, she explained. But in the end, Crow, it all depends truly on if the creature in question was born into such high or low strength by genetics, or if, like Fiona, they study to get stronger. However, another factor we take into account is their behavior on a psychological standpoint, Mr. Kendrick said. Headmaster, if you have a few free seconds, why not explain to them examples using my friends? They're in several spectrums of rank, so that would possibly give them more insight, Fiona suggested. Indeed it would, Fiona. Yes, young Crow. As she said, take her friends for example, since you will likely meet them as well. Oki, who is a siren, was naturally born with a voice that could either incapacitate with a single shout, to fatal brain hemorrhage for a victim if she was to scream at the top of her lungs. And that isn't even the extent of her abilities. Naturally, she is a Class A+, bordering on a Class S due to her training with a sword that she owns, putting an intentional limit on the need for her powers less for a drastic measure. Last resort, if you will. Scarlet, a full-blooded vampire, is a Class S for not only her fighting skills and full knowledge of her vampiric abilities, but her temper and, how can I say, sociopathic distrust towards those non-vampiric compared to her. But she is one which you will likely have no problem with if you respect her space and don't do anything to anger her, Mr. Kendrick added. Though I must warn you that it doesn't take much to anger Scarlet, so it's best to just keep far away from her and not speak to her unless she speaks to you for whatever reason. Given you're not a vampire and haven't earned her trust, which will be a task in itself, Fiona added on. Finally, there's Dusk, Fiona's best friend, who is a hybrid species of vampire, being turned thus, not born such. She is a Class D, Mr. Kendrick said. Why such a low rank? Crow asked. Well, she is a complex case. It's quite debatable just what kind of dormant abilities she may have, given that she hasn't been a vampire that long. She shows abilities that rival those who are pure-blooded, yet her moral standings are similar to Oki in that her full potential is unreached because she won't normally put herself in a position to have to use her powers. Which after today, things may have changed, Fiona explained. What happened? Crow asked. Fiona was about to explain before she caught a slight head turn to the left and right from the headmaster, motioning for her to keep Dusk's attack on Hell's Prophets a secret. It's personal, and I doubt Dusk would want it spoken of, but what I will say is that she has the potential to see several ranks, Fiona said, leaning to a small and head nod from Mr. Kendrick. I understand. I don't know what class my powers will put me in. Guess what I have to see, right? Crow said. That reminds me. Crow, speaking of creature types and abilities, just what are you anyway, if you don't mind me asking? Fiona asked. Crow didn't answer with speech, but instead did the unexpected. Whoa, what the hell? Fiona said before taking a quick step back upon seeing Crow standing there in a perfect mimic form of her. I'm a shapeshifter. Anyone that I come into physical contact with, I can take on their form down to their blood type. No, let me rephrase that. Down to everything. Crow explained in his voice before using exactly the same speech pattern as Fiona for the last 3 words. We, have someone with similar abilities on campus, so in other words, you could copy fingerprints? Fiona asked, looking at her hands. Yeah, but not for identity theft or something like that. Not my thing, he explained. What about what's under my clothes, she asked. Fiona, what are you getting at? Do you think I'm going to go look at myself naked while I'm in your form? I may be a little awkward to be around because of my powers, but trust me when I say I respect girls. Crow said defensively as he changed back into his human form. I didn't mean to offend you. I'm sorry, Fiona said, feeling upset with herself. Crow looked at Mr. Kendrick, who was smiling but showing slight impatience now, possibly due to the awkward turn that the conversation had taken. I'll talk to you about it after I have free time, Crow said before walking off alongside Mr. Kendrick. Damn it. Nice going, Fiona. Figures I end up being the one to hurt the first new arrival's feelings, Fiona said to herself as she walked back over to the spot and sat back down. Upon doing so, she glanced over to the side where the girls had been fighting before and saw the girl who had caused the scene in the first place was staring at her. I can't believe you got shot down like that by the new guy within only a few minutes of talking to him, she said, shrugging her head with a constant smirk. Not that I was talking to him with the intent of dating him, let alone fucking him, nor is it your business if that was the case. But even if I was, at least I was more believable than getting shot down without speaking to him, Fiona retorted. The crowd of students that had originally formed to watch the fight before it broke out into laughter and a series of ooh. The girl balled her fist and proceeded to walk towards Fiona. Fiona, however, opened her spell book, causing the girls to drop dead in her tracks. If you want to add getting your ass kicked without someone laying a hand on you to that list of accomplishments that I myself personally would be proud of, be my guest, Fiona threatened. The girl knew how skilled Fiona was. Bitch. She said she turned and walked away. Better be a bitch than I thought, Fiona replied. More laughter sounded from the crowd. The girl stopped, balled up her fist, and huffed without looking back at Fiona before stomping down the hallway. Once she had left, Fiona went back to looking over one of her spell books and writing notes. A few minutes passed before she heard a noise slowly getting louder outside. It soon became apparent that the sound was that of a helicopter. All the students in the lobby proceeded to look outside just in time to make out a UH-60 Black Hawk coming from behind the trees, creating a large gale of wind from the helicopter's rotors that blew dust and leaves in all directions. This is the next new arrival. They're making one hell of an entrance, one of the students said as he watched in awe. The student's words were the last thing needed to fully catch Fiona's interest again, and she got it back up and stepped towards the front window of the lobby to get a closer view. The helicopter slowed down and proceeded to hover in midair, around 60 feet above the parking lot. Well, they're going to get out or what? Another male student said curiously after a few minutes had passed. Why don't you go ask them? One of the female students said sarcastically. Why don't you? Hell, go spread your legs and see if they can swan dive right in. The male student snapped back. A loud slap filled the air before the male student staggered from the female student slapping him across the face. Fiona stood there shaking her head while scratching her nails against the glass window as an argument broke out in the lobby between the students over who was going to go greet the new student. Finally, she hadn't heard enough. Shut the hell up already. All the students stared at Fiona in surprise. She continued. All of you are so stupid. I mean, here you are arguing over who's going to go greet him if he's going to kill you. As if you were all afraid. You're all afraid. Well, I highly doubt anyone can be as bad as Hell's Prophet, so I'll gladly go out and meet him. The rest of you stand here with your tails between your legs. Fiona snapped as she opened the door and walked outside. She then heard a locking noise and turned to see that one of the male students had locked the door behind her. Really, dude? Fiona said as she banged on the glass. Sorry, but we aren't taking any chances, the student said through the glass. Fiona thought about it. Fiona shook her head as she closed her eyes and grinned. Underestimated again. Dear, dear, what will I do with a lot of you? She thought as she opened her spell book and recited an incantation. The door suddenly unlocked, indicating that Fiona used what she called a skeleton key charm and turned her back to it without another word. What the hell? The student says he locked it again. Fiona stopped walking and glared back at him. Something about the look in her eyes made the student gasp from fear. Alright, asshole, Fiona said to herself. She didn't recite a spell again, only this time she recited another spell right after it. The door unlocked again, and in reply, the student tried to lock it once more, only to have a mousetrap suddenly appear and clamp down on his hand when he tried to turn the lock. As he struggled to get it off, he noticed that, like a Chinese finger trap puzzle, it tightened the more he tried to pull free. Mommy says keep your hand out of the cookie jar. Fiona joked in a cold octave, causing the other students to laugh. You're not my mother. He mouthed to the pain. Thankfully, though as much as she may have bought you in this world, I'll for sure as shit take you out of it if you touch that lock one more time. Fiona snapped before turning her back yet again. Waving her hand without looking back, this caused an enchanted mousetrap to vanish while the student, in fear of the witch, took off in a run. Fiona held her head down as she walked with a hand over her mouth and nose to keep from inhaling the upwind of dust. But upon getting close, getting just below the helicopter, she saw the shadow of something falling from above. As she looked up, she noticed a large bag descending towards her and instinctively put her arms out to catch it. She then found herself on the ground with the wind knocked out of her as the bag rested on top of her chest, the weight keeping her not only pinned to the ground but unable to breathe. Get it off! Help! Get this thing off me! Fiona managed to get out in short breaths while kicking her legs and swinging her arms wildly. As she struggled, she saw another bag fall into the ground. But as it did, she saw something else all the while, or more appropriately, someone. Whoever it was, it flipped backwards out of the helicopter before going to another half rotation, falling upside down and past the bag. Before the individual reached ground level, he righted himself up, finished the rotation, and he landed on his feet from high altitude, only an inch from Fiona's head. He then quickly pulled the bag off her and pulled her up. Are you okay, miss? Correct me if you may, but would this not be an odd place for a nap? The mysterious youth said in a somewhat deep voice that made Fiona shudder just a little, especially as politeness. Yeah, I'm fine. But your bag! Fiona sputtered out quickly. Oh, do not fret. I think you kept my things from getting broken, he said. Sounded somewhat calm as he bent down and felt the contents of the bag. No, the other bag! Catch it! Fiona yelled as his remaining belongings came closer to the ground. Fiona watched as he simply stood up and, without looking at all, put one arm out, catching the bag a split second before it hit the ground. Seeing as we have not been introduced, I'm Ren Mosley. And who might you be, if introductions are a necessity? He said, still in a calm manner, yet ever so proper to where Fiona shuddered yet again as she tried to find words. Fiona Morellis. It's nice to meet you, Ren. Albeit a somewhat strange way to start your arrival at Ravenrock, Fiona said jokingly, raising her eyebrow. I am ever so charmed. Indeed charmed to make your acquaintance. Considering you caught my bag for me, though I would say tried to, is more appropriate, I consider you a friend due to such, Miss Morellis, so please allow me to be proper. Ren said with a smile as he gently grabbed her hand and kissed it, leading to her slightly blushing, though she knew not if it was embarrassment or simply being flattered. In her mind, she was thinking, do guys like this still exist? Ren Mosley, age 19, stood around 5'11" with fine straight black hair tied in the form of an undercut, styled in the form of an undercut, with the sides of his lower jaw and a thick curtain of parted hair hanging over his eye, while the hair near the nape of his neck had been buzzed short. His slender frame was dressed in all black from his jeans to his Adidas dress shirt and tie, though the color of his eyes were a mystery due to a pair of sunglasses obscuring them. As far as Ren's appearance went, this is what Fiona was able to make out from his proper speech pattern that had its share of chivalry that seemed long since dead for the male population, especially to standards such as the likes of Dimitri Porter, who, though he spoke in gentleman-like mannerisms, it was only a front to the lifestyle of words are hard. It was only a front to the lifestyle of a lowly womanizing bastard. However, what remained a mystery to her was what type of creature Ren was. Considering that he had just bat-flipped out of a helicopter from 60 feet above the ground and landed on his feet completely unharmed, it was obvious he wasn't human. Though she was expecting for him to be something more anyway, since he had arrived at Ravenrock University, which wasn't exactly a tourist destination for mortals. So what brings you to this place, Ren? Fiona finally asked as they walked towards the lobby. I'm looking for someone dear to me, Ren said, holding both bags by their straps and walking beside Fiona, glancing around as if the person in question may have been close by. Girlfriend? Childhood crush? You have a name for this boo thing? Fiona asked, wondering more and more. Ren just stared at her blankly. Fiona clasped a hand to her mouth before realizing what she was saying. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to sound so nosy. It's none of my business. I just want to see if I could be of any help, Fiona said, looking at the ground as she walked. It's nothing personal nor against you. It is simply a matter of the less you know, the better, for your own good. So do not apologize, but on the same note, do not ask any more about it, okay? Ren said, smiling before putting a hand on her shoulder, thus telling her that the conversation on the subject was over. Okay, I understand, but I do have one question, Ren. Say another, because she was asked a question before. I do have another question, Ren, Fiona said. Sure. What is it? Just what species of creature are you? Fiona asked him. Ren finally removed his sunglasses, revealing he had red irises. A vampire. And considering that his eyes were crimson-toned in a calm mood, it was proof that he was born such. So you're a vampire. Hey, wait a minute. How can you stand in sunlight, then? Fiona said, looking up at the sky and the bright form of the sun shining back. It's a long story, but it's something called induced immunity. Something a friend of mine taught me. As they walked inside the dorm lobby, talking all the while, Fiona thought she felt a slight faint force of some kind come from Ren, but she quickly disregarded it. She was still a little out of breath from when his luggage fell on hers only minutes ago, so she felt it was just an after effect. Well, look who's here, a voice said as Fiona and Ren entered the lobby. Scarlet was leaning up against the wall with a slight smile on her face. Ren showed a slight grin as he walked towards her, leaving Fiona in a look of confusion. Scarlet barely ever smiled. If anything, a person tickling her to try to get so much as a grin would end up decapitated because she felt that they would try to put her out of her element. Scarlet Carson, fancy meeting you here. Still seeing humans as a pathetic species, or have you finally seen that they have as much place in this world as we do and have decided to cut them a break? Ren said as he greeted Scarlet with a hug. Don't be ridiculous, Ren. Of course I still feel the same about those creatures. Why would I want to befriend something that's supposed to be understand love, yet makes a habit out of destroying one another? Scarlet said as she pushed Ren backwards. You tell me, Scarlet. Maybe it's because anything that has rational thought has the potential to take a life as just as much as it could create a life. Humans, yes, of course, they have much need to redeem their ways. But you know for a fact our kind are the same way, though I feed in a way less taxing to them. Am I missing something here? How do you two know each other? And also, what do you mean less taxing of them, Ren? Fiona said, stepping in on the conversation. First question, it is a long story. It's a long story. But for the second question, Ren here doesn't feed by biting. He scratches the human with his fingernail to their hand, with his fingernail to their hand, so does not risk turning them or cutting too deep and takes enough to nourish, while not enough to cause them harm. I see not why. Good riddance to whatever life he calls himself saving, when it's only chaff. Scarlet explained. Quite true of that explanation to my feeding methods, but as far as our past, Scarlet, our lives are long as we have time to explain, which I will gladly do. Ren said to Scarlet, who shot him an evil look. Bastard. Scarlet thought to herself as Ren began to tell Fiona their backstory. Me and Scarlet were very close from age 4. Best friends and almost inseparable until I left. But as you can tell, we never exactly saw eye to eye. You see, my view is that humans deserve to make their own way of life regardless of the outcome of their actions. Scarlet, on the other hand, sees them as a plague. Numbers be cold. Though she does not see the irony in that without humans to feed on, our species would have to find alternatives. Also, when a human is turned to a vampire, the creature she once hated becomes one of her species. Anyway, I take it that you two are friends. You were friends with her also, Fiona? Ren said. Yeah, she was one of the first people I met when I arrived here, Fiona told him. Ren just looked at Scarlet with a blank expression, which was something she remembered from their childhood. It was his way of telling her that he was looking for an answer to something. What? Scarlet asked. You say you are against being friends with humans. However, considering that Fiona is a witch, would that not make her still, in a way, human, albeit with magical abilities? Care to explain? Ren said in a serious tone as he got an inch from Scarlet's face, causing her to ease away a little. Fiona had a thought in her head. She never told him she was a witch, so how did he know? Seeing as she hadn't even talked to anyone else yet who knew what she was except for Scarlet, she didn't even mention it. Look, I have exceptions, alright? She's a witch, meaning in a way she's like me in that she has powers. Anyone here that is supernatural that I consider a possible friend or one that I find a reason to trust may at one point become either to me. Fiona earned my trust and she isn't the first nor the last. I swear, Ren, you left my life for a decade, now you come back as an asshole. Scarlet snapped before pushing back past him and walking off. Very nice to see you again, too, Ren said before giving a small laugh. Were you guys like this growing up? Fiona asked. Yeah, but not this bad. I think she is still a little bitter because I left, without saying goodbye to her and most of my other friends. Well, you went to the Air Force, right? Wouldn't she have been proud of you? Fiona asked. Oh, that helicopter was just some friends of mine. I never have been in the Air Force, and even if I wanted to, vampirism, I guess one might say, would be a hindrance in enlistment, Ren explained. True. In that respect, where did you go then? Fiona asked, still curious. You may not believe me, especially for my looks, but I am a ninja, and the place I left for was a shinobi academy in Japan, Ren answered. Fiona stood where she was with a blank look on her face after Ren's words to which he called on to disbelief. It is the truth. You do not have to believe me, but mainly what I'm saying is that Scarlet was never upset about me going to the Air Force because I never went to such. It was because I went to a ninja school. Her mindset was, and I'm certain still is, sees vampirism to already be perfection, and for one of us to go and take on a deeper knowledge past what we learned from the Knight's Blessing as an insult. Ren said as he carried his bags to the front desk and signed his name. Thank you, Mr. Maudsley. Please have a seat while I let the headmaster know you are here, Rose said from behind the desk. Thank you, ma'am. I sincerely appreciate it, Ren replied before going to take a seat. Fiona was still in the same spot staring at him. Ninja school, she said, still not believing what he had told her. Yes, ninja school. I attended studies and lived at the academy. In Japan from 10 years old until I was 16. I just graduated 3 years ago with a Class S diploma, which is the highest rank one can receive, he said. Yeah, right. I'll believe it when you can give me proof. Fiona said she sat down next to Ren on the couch. Fair enough. I have other talents anyway, Ren said to change the subject. Like what? Fiona asked him. It is only a hobby I have, but I like working with anything mechanical. Cars, cell phones, watches, stereo systems, and so on. I never like to brag, but I consider myself good at fixing and creating things, Ren said. So more or less, you're a mechanic, Fiona asked. Indeed, I can fix things, but as I stated, I can also build things from scratch, so I consider myself somewhat inventive, although I do not make a living out of it, Ren proclaimed. Well, I have a cell phone, Fiona said, as do I. We are in a digital age, Fiona, so it's obvious that you do. Ren told her, I mean that I have a broken cell phone, so fix it if you're so smart. Fiona said with a smirk on her face as she pulled her cell phone out of her bag. Ever since she dropped in a puddle of water a few weeks before, it wouldn't come on. Her carrier said it couldn't be fixed. You doubt that I am a ninja, which I can understand, but now you say I am no good at fixing things. Give me the phone, Ren said, though still sounding calm, which surprised Fiona. She watched as Ren looked the phone over and using his hands and a screwdriver, proceeded to take it apart. He touched a number of the components in the phone with a tool. A few minutes later, he put it back together and handed it back to Fiona. Try it now, he said with a confident smile. Fiona pressed the power button and showed a shocked look when it actually did turn on. I think someone owes me an apology, Ren said sarcastically. Okay, I'm sorry that I still don't believe you're a ninja, Ren said in sarcasm herself. Touché, Ren replied. Mr. Maudsley, the headmaster is ready to see you, Rose called out to Ren. Ren glanced up and saw Mr. Kendrick walking towards him. Hello, Ren, and welcome to Ravenrock University. I'm John Kendrick, Mr. Kendrick said in his usual tone of greeting before extending his hand. Thank you, sir, Ren said before shaking his hand, to which afterwards he went to a traditional Japanese bow. That bow he did. Could he have been telling the truth about being a ninja? No. It was just a bow, and he only did to mess with me, Fiona thought to herself. Crow grew tired, so he wanted me to tell you that he would talk to you in a little while after he slept off his fatigue and would see you at lunch. It was a long ride from his town, so I gave him a reprieve until the rest of his orientation in a few hours. Also, in case you would like to know, he scored a C on his ranking, Mr. Kendrick explained to Fiona, pulling her from her thoughts. It's odd. For what such powers, For what such powers would be capable of, especially given he's similar to Nero and such, isn't that a little low for a changeling to rank as, sir? Fiona asked. It would seem he is in the same mindset as Dusk. He couldn't use his powers in the test to the extent that it was asked. He would likely have scored higher if he was willing to use his powers without fear of hurting others, let alone fighting at all. Mr. Kendrick explained. Fiona breathed a sigh of relief, but upon seeing the headmaster and Ren giving her an odd look, she put her hand to her nose and let out a fake sneeze to hide it. This low-level rank was assurance to her that Dusk could be excluded from the list of her mysterious watchers. These allergies, I swear. I get like this whenever spring comes around, Fiona said. It is the latter part of October, my dear, Mr. Kendrick corrected. Fiona let out a nervous gasp before looking at the headmaster as her eyes widened. Oh, well, so it is. Silly me. I get my allergies mixed up with my sniffles from a common cold all the time. Fiona said timidly. She didn't glance at Ren and noticed he had his eyebrow raised with an amused smile on his face. Damn it, he's on to me. Fiona, you ditz. Fiona thought to herself. I have to take Ren to his test now. In the meantime, you may want to consider going to the nurse for allergy medicine, Mr. Kendrick said. I will see you soon. The other 3 students should be here before long, and I'm sure they shall be just as eager to see a tour of the school. Make sure your cold is in check as to not let them catch it. Ren stayed with a wait before walking off with Mr. Kendrick. As he left, Fiona repeated what he had said in her mind. How does he know how many students will be coming? As far as I know, only any new student who arrives here isn't given any information on how many students will be coming in aside from himself or herself, Fiona thought. It continued. The mental chess game in her brain, where for every move she made to offer clarity on her next move, her opponent in the form of her paranoia could counter her advance, forcing her back into a corner. Was Ren one of the students one of the ones from the other night, from Saturday night? She couldn't sense anything from him. And on the same note, she couldn't sense anything from Crow, but was that possibility still in the air? If Ren was one of them, that would explain how he knew how many more new arrivals there would be, because he would have already known them. Him and Crow both seemed nice enough. Just like Stonewall had done to fool Oki into dating him, could they be putting on an act of kindness just to make an easy kill? Fiona quickly dismissed the thoughts and found herself feeling stupid for the way she was thinking. Thinking in fear just the way the other students were when Ren arrived. Thinking in a way that she usually despised others for doing themselves. Casting judgments without knowing the person. Ren and Crow had come to a new place to learn more about their powers. In a sense, they both had other goals. Crow was destined for a reluctant battle with a member of an opposing bloodline, and Ren was apparently looking for someone important to him for reasons unknown to Fiona. They both had their own struggles going on, just as much as she did, and whether they were the ones from before or not. Fiona was intent on helping them in whatever way she could if they weren't out to kill her in the long run. It was a chance she was willing to take. Fiona, can I ask a favor of you? Rose said from the desk. Yes, of course, Fiona said before walking into the desk. Since Miss Kaya is on room rest, I'd like to ask you to take her some breakfast, if you don't mind. Rose asked. Sure, I'd be happy to, Fiona replied. Rose called the school cafeteria, and within the next few minutes, one of the cooks arrived in the dorm lobby with a plate of food on a cart covered by a metal lid. Fiona took the plate from the cart and walked to an elevator, since Oki's room was on the 3rd floor, which, as with the room Fiona and Dusk shared, was an all-girl floor. As the enticing aroma of the food caught Fiona's nostrils and her stomach growled, she was instantly reminded she hadn't eaten proper breakfast. She kept in the thought that she had only a couple classes left before lunchtime, but from what her wristwatch was saying, her 1 hour break was going to be over in the next 9 minutes. I mean, once she took Oki her food and gave her a quick explanation of what had happened, she was going to have to hurry back to class. I mean, she wouldn't be able to see the rest of the new arrivals when they showed up. The thought of going back to class, given the ongoing events, wasn't at the top of her list of things she wanted to do, however. Dimitri's actions earlier that cost one of the students his life, the uncertainty of not knowing who Crow and Ren really were, and aside from all of that, Dusk unlocking the power of her dark drive, and Fiona being unsure how to approach her without making things worse. However, she made a promise to Mr. Kendrick that she wouldn't let anything waver her studies, and she was going to keep her word. Hey, Oki, you awake? Fiona said she knocked on the door to Oki's one-person private room, which she had earned through her hard studying and participating in various school activities. Yeah, I'm up. Come on in, she heard Oki say on the other side. Fiona walked into Oki's room, which, like the outside hallway, was decorated with purple tiles on the floor and black walls. But aside from that, it had a few extra touches from Oki herself, such as posters of various anime and manga all over the walls and ceiling, as well as posters of various bands. Oki was sitting up in bed playing a video game on her PS4, thus showing signs that she was feeling better. Yet by the expression of pain she was showing every time she moved even a little, it was obvious that she was still feeling the effects of Stonewall's attack. Since he cracked her ribs, it was going to be affecting her for a while, obviously. Oki Kaya, now age 20, had turquoise hair which ended in silver tips that layered down to her shoulders, bringing out her face, which had an aspect with the rest of her body that was a pale gray in skin color. Similarities stopped there, though, given that unlike her face, her body itself was covered with several small green indents of what seemed like a tribal design from shoulder to toe, as if scarification in the rooms of another language. These markings encircled and made a series of hieroglyphic-like structures, scriptures, and glowed with alien-like energy with each breath she took. No one knew what they meant, let alone what they said. Her blue eyes stood out just as much though, and were impossible not to notice at first glance, seeing as there were no white and only the side of a full blue in the sockets like miniature versions of the planet Neptune, giving her irises and pupils matched the hue of her sclera. Since she was short, her hair seemed longer than it actually was, and while she had a lesser than thin figure and thus was on the plump side compared to her friend, she was more muscle than fat, so she still looked healthy, just as she indeed was, minus her injuries. Her size, however, was a plus, given that she was quite strong due to it, but her strength also came from sword training growing up, considering that her trademark weapon was a twin-bladed Zweehander, which weighed around 150 pounds itself. Even with its weight, she had shown the surprising ability to wield it with no effort, using just one hand. Though she was on room rest, she was still dressed in her normal style clothes, which consisted of a loose black shirt, a pair of blue jeans, and also a pair of white skateboarding shoes that had different colored shoelaces, of blue and green. "Shouldn't you be sleeping?" Fiona said in a motherly tone. Not really that easy to do when you can't lie down without it feeling like you got run over by a freight train. Oki joked, wincing in pain, and between words she talked in a speech pattern that showed no trace of her tomboy nature, which was one of her cute and lovable features that her friends liked about her. Or a rock slide. "Anyway, I bought you breakfast." Fiona said, changing the subject as she handed the tray to her. Oki looked the food over and showed a look of disappointment. "Damn, no broccoli," she said. As Oki ate, she listened as Fiona explained everything that had been going on since she had been hurt. The incidents with Stonewall, Dimitri, and Bane, the mysterious attackers, Dusk's dark drive being triggered, and the 2 new revivals. Through the whole explanation, however, Oki didn't so much as show even one hint of surprised expression. A reminder to Fiona just how much Oki was, how used to such matters Oki was, given how long she had been in Ravenrock compared to her. Strange events were only natural of such a place. Figures all interesting stuff has to happen when I'm not around to see it, but even so, for some of the things you mentioned, it's not nearly as bad as you may think. Oki said as she pushed her plate away after finishing her food. "What do you mean?" Fiona asked. "Dusk is showing that she's getting stronger. The feeling may be awkward for a while, and not just for her, but everyone around her who saw it happen. When you unlock your first dark drive, it always tends to be. Some people learn to accept it, and some don't. I still haven't gotten used to mine, but I am slowly. When you have the power to turn someone into bloody dust with a scream, it really doesn't help your self-esteem that much, hence why I barely use it no matter how harsh the situation. Plus my sword skills make up for it anyway," Oki explained. "So you only have one dark drive?" Fiona asked. "Yes, as I'm sure she told you, Scarlet has one as well, though depending on the person, you can have up to 3 in as few as 1. In case Scarlet didn't tell you, though, there's more than likely a chance that yours will be coming out very soon," Oki said. "Why's that?" Fiona asked, feeling concerned over whatever Oki may say next. "Because though a person may find their dark drive beforehand, no one ages too far past 20 years old without doing so. Meaning you'll unlock yours likely within the next few months. The most obvious trigger is anger and stress, which can make it happen sooner. Time will tell all," Oki explained. Fiona felt a chill go down her neck. It was enough that thanks to Scarlet, she knew she had a hidden power inside her, but now she knew that it wasn't going to be long before she released it. Oki said the next few months, but would it even be that long? "I wouldn't worry about Dusk because she'll be fine. However, the other shit that's been happening, Fiona, just make sure you stay on your guard, alright? I may be stuck here for a moment, but even I can tell something's up. Commonplace as such events may be, a possible threat is a threat anyway. Especially if it was capable of breaching Stonewall's defenses," Oki said, sounding concerned now. "Yeah. Right," Fiona said, somewhat paranoid. "Anyway, you may want to hurry and get to class before you're late," Oki said. "Alright, I'll see you later then," Fiona said as she hugged Oki gently and ran out the door. She walked back to the elevator. Oki's words continued to bounce off the walls in her mind. Her stress mentality ate away at her like a pack of vultures picking off the carcass of a recently deceased cow, swimming in and biting into her again and again. It was due to this that it was a delayed reaction when Fiona had noticed a strange feeling inside her heart, like it was threatening to explode. The painful sensation began to make itself known throughout her body as she found herself leaning up against a wall by her shoulder, clutching her chest and breathing rapidly while sweating even more so. A heart attack at her young age? How? She did her best to keep healthy and had no history of heart problems in her family. Now this was something else. For some reason, she was sensing another spike of power, but this one had more to it than others, enough to where it hurt Fiona horribly. She could tell that unlike the other entities which she had no clue about, this one had an aura that was without a doubt completely evil in the most pure sense of maleficence. Or malfeasance, whatever. It wasn't any of the members of Hell's prophets, but something worse. And whatever it was It was on the elevator right across from her that just stopped on her floor in the chapter 2. So yeah, definitely wanted to, like, considering the last chapter didn't really end in one thing I told myself when I first was writing this book that I wanted to make, definitely add some cliffhangers in. The first chapter obviously didn't really end in a cliffhanger. It just was like a declaration of, I guess, war or whatever, from Hell's Prophets. You want to kind of like, go in that, take it that way. But this one right here obviously is leading up to definite cliffhanger for how chapter 3 is going to start. Chapter 3 is also like another one of my favorites that I wrote. You guys will be getting that one next week, on Wednesday. But obviously it's shown here what this was like, very focal on, was trying to give more development to Fiona and Dusk primarily. Obviously, Scarlet had her moments as like a little background character, sort of like kind of like a, Scarlet with her being, even with her being the wild card and being hot-headed, one thing I did like do with her, I want to do is like make it where, she's unpredictable, but she's also wise. So she's obviously someone that Fiona and Dusk can both come to. And I kind of also did that with Oki as well. Oki and Scarlet, compared to Dusk and Fiona, have been at the school longer. There's going to be some more backstory to Oki that's going to be explained as well, showing, her ties to, like, childhood ties to another character. But the whole point behind this was that the whole point behind this chapter is basically trying to give more development, primarily to Fiona and Dusk, while Oki and Scarlet are right there as, like, more like mentor figures in a way. Because they've, been at the school longer. They've, kind of like had like a lot more time to really like kind of understand what they are and their abilities. And given that they're like, really good friends, such, like completely loyal friends to both Fiona and Dusk, they're going to do whatever they can to kind of like, help them out, knowing that they're not really as, they haven't really, had, I guess, like as much time with their powers. Like, things are going to come up with Fiona. They're going to explain, that she, hasn't really, in regards to like her abilities. It's going to like, definitely use some backstory later on, like showing like, when her, her ability to use witchcraft, first manifested. And also, you guys have, of course, like, kind of seen like, the backstory of Dusk from the first stream, which, is kind of shown that she's only been like a vampire for a few years and she's still learning. And that's basically kind of like what I wanted to do here, while also, of course, like introducing, a few new characters that are going to be, part of the plot moving forward. And mainly another thing about this was, of course, made us the chapter where it's going to show, like, where obviously was shown that Dimitri definitely, I was showing like more and more how deplorable Dimitri is, but also like, showing like more moments where like, all like, what he is. I mainly like, a lot of scenes where Dimitri's in this book, I'm going to say, ends up revolving around like him coming in and trying to act like he's above everyone else, like constantly, and usually it ends with like, him getting his ego bruised. So that's kind of like a running joke in this, and whatnot. But yeah, obviously, as you guys can see, things are kind of picking up with the story here. The first, chapter was mainly just an introduction to the female leads and kind of like, just setting, the setting. But now it's actually trying to like, I'm like when I first did this, I want to make sure this, of course, is where things hopefully start ramping up a little bit. It's only going to continue to do so moving forward. But anyways, with that being said, guys, I definitely felt like I was kind of stuttering and getting caught on my words like a lot tonight as well. And I did warn in the first stream when I did this that was going to happen, that it wasn't going to be a perfect reading. There was going to be like, parts where I was going to botch, what I was reading, and it wasn't going to be perfect. So hopefully you guys bear with that. I'm not like, a lot of these other channels on here that are just dead on, just completely perfect, with their reading of like, stories and everything. Like when they read like, scripts or, books, audio books or whatever. I'm definitely like not at that level, but I want to try to do my best for you guys, at least read this to you. So for those who enjoyed that, even with like the flaws and how I'm able to read all this, I deeply appreciate you guys. Once again, I basically said in the previous stream, favorite characters, if you guys like want to like basically say who your favorite characters were in this chapter or just overall so far, deeply appreciate the input. But that being said, next stream is going to be tomorrow with more Pokemon Scarlet. But well, that aside, hope you guys like enjoyed this. Thank you for those who came out and listened in on this. Thank you those who may watch like the recording for this once the stream is live, or once the stream's over. Those who may come back and watch this later, I deeply appreciate you guys. And I'll see you guys tomorrow for Pokemon Scarlet, and then of course next Wednesday will be like next episode for this. So until next one, Rogues, much love. Thank you guys for coming out. I'll see you guys in the next stream. Thank you for watching. Thank you so much for watching my stream. If you like my content and want to see more, be sure to follow me and hit that notification bell. You can also find me on Instagram and join my Guilded server to hang out and join in on occasional movie nights, as well as check out my TikTok where I post comic book clips from my live streams. If you're an aspiring streamer, my website contains a collection of over a dozen completely free text guides with advice to help you get started. Sections dedicated to proper networking, reports to channel panels, handling dead air, and many other topics. You can find a link to my website on my YouTube channel. See you guys next time.